James Deakin. I'm 41 years old, plus VAT and maybe a little service charge. And I'm being told that I have the greatest job ever. Basically, I am paid to fly around the world and drive cars like this. They actually pay me for that, yeah. And I do this to put it on my website, magazine, TV shows, and all other forms of media. So yeah, it is a pretty incredible job, and you could pretty much say that after seeing the world and driving everything from these Ferraris to a Formula One car, I am living the dream. But it wasn't always like that. Let me just tell you that probably like every single one of you in this room, if you haven't gone through it yet, you will. I've gone through my own ups and downs. And it's another TED Talk for another time. I can't get into it. It's just too long. But life has been life. And, well, I was pretty much forced to work full-time from the age of 14. And that affected my studies. I basically never finished first year high school. And you're probably the first people I've ever told that to. Publicly, seriously. I'm not proud of it. But I'm not ashamed of it either. It is what it is. And you're just playing the cards that life dealt you. So, yes, I'll be honest, it did compromise a lot of my choices in life and my options. Obviously, no corporate person would touch me. I don't blame them either. So, what did I learn from that? Well, I learned how to survive. So I became a dishwasher first. I was at 14. I was promoted to assistant waiter, then bartender. Then I did a stint in a Japanese restaurant as a karaoke DJ. I sold memberships online for a hotel. I sold cars. I washed cars. I was even that guy on late night TV. It chops, it slices, and it dices. But that's not all. If you ring within the next 5 minutes, you get 3 sets steak knives. Yeah. I was that infomercial guy, and in fact, well, I was young. I needed the money. You know what? In fact, I'm probably more embarrassed to reveal that than about the fact that I didn't finish high school. But you know, you learn. And this is what it is. This is what life is. So the theme of this TED Talk is what I've learned. Well, I learned a lot from that. I also learned how to appreciate what I've got now. So it was pretty much precisely at this point in life where 13 years ago, I was evicted out of our house. I had a 1-year-old kid. I literally didn't know where I was going to live. And that's not a lie. My entire family was also not in a position to help. It was the scariest moment in my life. But once again, drawing on what I've learned, I was able to pick myself up. Shortly after that, a friend of mine called me up and said they're starting a car magazine. They said, would you like to join us? My mentor at the time, Ken Quintal, who was editor-in-chief, he took me in. He said, why don't you become our managing editor? I didn't know how to tell him. I don't even know how to spell that. Much less do it. But he told me that with enough passion, you can do anything you want. And he allowed me to be me. And basically, what I'm getting at is 13 years later, I'm standing in front of you in one of the most prestigious universities in the entire world, giving you this talk. I also learned that when I look back on that life and I said, wow, God, why? What did I ever do to deserve this wonderful job? An amazing mother, a proud father, 2 of the best brothers anyone could ever ask for, an incredible wife, and 3 of the most gorgeous children, nephews and nieces out there. And it was at that precise moment I decided to stop giving money to charity. I know that sounds a little crazy, but I stopped giving money to charity because I believe our whole approach to charity is fundamentally flawed. If you think about it, it's based on 3 pillars: compassion, obligation, and guilt. Right? Now, if you approach anything from that point of view, you're literally only going to be able to tap into a maximum 10% of somebody's capability to give. Why? Because that's how we were brought up. That's our obligation. So I decided to use everything that I've learned in life to apply it to charity. Because I remember my brother telling me one time, he said, if you ever want to get something out of somebody, never appeal to their sense of compassion, obligation, or guilt. You always appeal to their self-interest. So I applied that to charity. How did I do that? Well, case in point, November of 2013, there was Yolanda hit, right? And when Yolanda hit, one of the big dramas there were people were landing in Villamor Airport and they had nowhere to go. Or they had no way of getting there. So a buddy of mine called me up and he said, James, can you give us a hand? I know that you like to drive and you get all these test cars. Maybe you drive a few people home. So I did. I said, sure, no problem at all. And I went to the base and I picked up my first family and I drove them to wherever they needed to go. There's my first family there in the back of my pickup. I took them to where they needed to go. I came back, and then I picked up another family. And then I took them where they needed to go, and I came back and picked up another family. And then when I came back, I looked at the plane, and I said, holy, my truck's not big enough. And neither am I. There's no way in the world I'm going to be able to do this. So I felt I was more valuable now behind the keyboard than I was behind the steering wheel. And I applied everything I learned and the blessings I've been given to become a blessing to others. So I sat there and I did what I did best. I write stories. I tell stories for a living. And so I got there and I thought, if I approach this from a different point of view, charity doesn't need to be complicated. Give it to them in bite-sized pieces and tell them little stories. So I put on my Facebook wall, I said, hey, I'm here in Villamor. If anyone's passing through and happens to be going down south, maybe Alabama or something, would you mind swinging by a little boy, a really cute little boy, and his mom could really use a lift home? Oh, by the way, make room for a teddy bear. It was just enough for that, you know, what's this? So I got a call from a friend, hey, what's up? I said, well, I'm here in Villamor, and a cute little kid just arrived from Tacloban, and has some relatives up there in somewhere in Alabama, or Las Piñas or something. Hey, you live there, right? Yeah, sure, okay, I'll swing by. He swung by. I put those two in the car, plus a teddy bear. See you later. And he went. As he went, I knew exactly what was going to happen, and sure enough, I get a phone call about 45 minutes, an hour later. He's sobbing on the other end of the phone. 6'4", hairier than me, and he's beside himself. What happened there was he, the giver, was so humbled by what had just happened. Why? Because I made it so simple for him. He was going that direction, something he takes for granted every single day of his life, going home in a private car. This meant the world to that family. They thanked him from the bottom of their toes up. They were willing to get down on their hands and knees and thank him. And when he saw the impact he had in that person's life, those two people's lives, it humbled him to no end because he takes for granted that every day. So when they left and he saw the impact he had, giving something to a person who has nothing, he cried and he called me and told me this. And I said, okay, here's the deal. All I ask from you is I share your story. He said, yes, absolutely. So what have I done? Now I'm no longer asking for your help anymore. I put the story up and I shared that story. And if it touched you in any way, shape, or form, believe me, I had more than 15 minutes to tell that story before. But if you're feeling what this guy's feeling now, and I put it up there, I'm no longer asking, I'm selling a feeling. You get it? I'm putting it out there. And that's all that brands do. That's all that marketers do. I'm sorry to pull the cloak of all my marketer friends, but Ferrari, Lamborghini, Louis Vuitton, Apple, are they appealing to your sense of compassion? Guilt? I don't think so. Self-interest. So now, self-interest, I don't want to cheapen, it comes in many forms. I've given you an opportunity to feel like this guy here. So, I got a ton of calls. How can I help? Well, come over here. Little stories around, everyone telling the same stories. I kept repeating them. I did what I did. I used a newspaper, I used my blog, I used TV, used everything I could. 2 weeks later, we had 2,000 drivers registered. We drove 20,000 people home without a single incident, free of charge. Just from pure love. I'm not claiming credit for the idea. That was another bunch of people's idea. I just used what I had learned to apply it to charity. Another case in point was a good friend of mine came up to me and said, my 2-month-old daughter needs open heart surgery. It's going to cost $1 million pesos. I thought, oh my God, no parent should ever have to go through this. I didn't know how to help him because I thought I could probably spare 15,000, 20,000 max. That's for a really close friend. But it'll really hurt me and it will make no dent in what he needs. So I decided to do the same thing and apply what I had learned. And I did the same approach. So being a journalist, I had access to cars like this. I just happened to be testing this Maserati Quattroporte, which, if you don't know, is a 4-door Ferrari. It's built by Ferrari and it's a 10.5 million peso car. Now, I offered myself up as a chauffeur. I had the right name, didn't I? James. So, I called up the distributor and I said, hey, buddy, I got your car this weekend. I'll still feature it and everything, don't worry. But don't get mad. Do you mind if I use it as a taxi? All right, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to auction myself off as a chauffeur. It's very simple, all right? Only people I know. Okay, gotcha. All he said to me was, listen, as long as it doesn't end up on sulit.com and isleave.pl, we're good. Okay, I'm trusting you on this one. That's a 10.5 million peso car. I said, leave it with me, buddy. So I called up some good friends, and I put it on my blog first. I wrote about it, and I said, hey, who wants to be chauffeured in this car? Go anywhere you want. Give me a donation. I'll give it to the girl. Haiyan Ramos, good friend of mine, said, yeah, sure. And she was the first customer. Once every guy saw that picture on Facebook, everyone wanted to be in that. So Haiyan used her popularity and everything like that. So I drove her to an event that she was going. She even had me walk her down the red carpet and everything. The reporters asked what's going on. Who's the new guy? It looks like Justoni Alarcon, but so I get it all the time. So soon enough, gorgeous people like this end up, Isa Calzado caught her interest. That's next Asian sex model. Pinky Webb caught the story. She was so excited. She put it on TV Patrol. It reached a point where in just 2-3 days, I'd raised 234,000 pesos. Now, when I went to break the news to this family, that Sunday, I came up and I said, hey, you wouldn't believe this. Blah, 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 blah. This is what I did, etc. They were beside themselves crying, and the grandfather, who I never met, said, I'm sorry, Iho, I don't get it. I'm really confused. Where do you get such a car? Who are you? And I said, well, I'm a journalist. This is what I do. I got it from the distributor. And his face dropped. He said, who? Willie Sung? Yeah, that's the distributor of Maserati. He lent it to me because I'm pressed. And then he just started crying. So I said, oh, what's wrong? And he said, does he know who he's helping? No, sir, he doesn't. As far as he knows, a little random girl with a broken heart. So he said, please tell him that it's my granddaughter. I said, yes, okay, I will. So I called up Willie Sung and said, hi, thank you for your help. We raised 234,000, blah, blah, blah. Hey, by the way, do you know who you're helping? And he said, no, I thought I was helping you. He said, well, you are, but you're really, the benefactor is a little girl, and it's the granddaughter of Jaime Ugarte. Now he starts crying. So I'm like, oh, what have I done? Two girls in the last 5 minutes. One's a taipan. He could have me really seriously injured. So I said, James, you know what happened when I was a young boy, 11 years old? I was standing on the side of the road. I used to catch, I had no money. Our family had no money. I used to catch 4 rides one way, 4 rides back to school. One day this car pulls up and says to me, hey, don't you go to our school? Why don't you jump in? We'll give you a lift. So he jumped in. Every day from the time he was 11 years old to the end of high school in 1959, this family drove him to and fro. He said to somebody who had nothing, that meant everything. And I said, well, Mr. Sung, now it's your turn to lend your car and give him a lift at the time he needed it the most. Because 55 years later, that's exactly what happened. So what have I learned from all of this, and what would I like to leave you with all of this, is basically that, you know, we all go through ups and downs. Those are defining moments. Embrace them, because they'll make you the person you are today. Number 2, if you ever really want to help a person, you have to give a piece of yourself. Number 3, if you want to really help, never, ever approach it from the sense of compassion, obligation, or guilt. You're only going to get so much. Be creative. Give something of yourself, because every single one, if you're waiting for somebody to do something, you are somebody. Everyone's a somebody. Okay, and you've got something to give. No matter how big or how small, it all adds up. In my case, I was a journalist driving around a beautiful car and beautiful women as well. But in your case, oh, sorry. I even got people in on the act, like Revilson. I asked him to be a celebrity chauffeur. He was kind enough. He played along with the whole thing. This young man happens to be our next Formula One hope. It's Marlon Stockinger. He's racing in the Renault World Series. He picked up a mother on Mother's Day for me. Basically, every single person can help. You can help. You just have to find what the blessing you have in life, because each of us have one, and you share that blessing with others. Because while I can't tell you what the meaning of life is, I don't think anyone can. I think no matter what God you pray to at night, I think that person at the end of the day, that deity at the end of the day, is just going to expect you to have left the world in slightly better shape than you found it. If that's all you do, I think you've been a success. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.